Well, now to some brand new research showing that's raising some questions for parents on just how much violence is actually being shown in movies your children are watching. This is according to a brand new study just published this week in the medical journal Pediatrics. And what it takes a look at is gun violence and violence in general in PG-13 movies. And it says that that violence has tripled since 1985. Researchers looked at 945 films and drew their results after examining 30 of the top grossing movies from 1950 to 2012. And they found not only that there is more violence in films, as we just mentioned, but also that PG-13 films contain just as much and sometimes even more violence than movies which were rated R. Joining me now to discuss this is Liz Stern. She's a parenting blogger and founder of DivaMoms.com, along with Jedediah Bila, Fox News contributor and a former high school academic dean and advisor. Great to have you both on this topic. It's interesting to read what some of the researchers say is their takeaway. Here's just an example of what one of the researchers said. It's disturbing that PG-13 movies are filled with so much gun violence. We know that movies teach children how adults behave, and they make guns use appear exciting and attractive. What do you think about that, Liz? Is that the takeaway here, that the movies are causing children to be more violent?
I don't think we can place the blame on the movies for making children more violent. However, what I do think is that we have to, as parents, recognize that these films are violent and that our children shouldn't be exposed to them until they are a certain age, and or if your child can handle that film. We can't blame the movies, but we can say that as a parent and as an educator to our children that we want to take them away from these films and we want to, put them in more innocent films and have them watch more innocent films, really honestly, than these violent films, because the violence, we know that it will help the children think about things that are more violent and play more violently, and we don't want that. We want to keep them as innocent until we can.
Well, and spoken as a mom, right, of two boys.
Yeah.
You want to keep them. You want to keep them young. That's why we had the PG-13 ratings. One of the reasons why, Jedediah, just a sign for parents to say, listen, if your kid's, 11, maybe this isn't the film for you, or maybe you should be there. Are these ratings just totally irrelevant now?
Well, I think it's a tough time to be a parent. And I think in modern times, with Facebook being what it is, with Twitter being what it is, with television, a lot of kids can access these movies online if they don't go see them in the theater. It's a tough time to be a parent, and you have to be engaged. You have to be following what your kids are doing. But look, this market responds to us. We are creating the desire for this. We are paying to go see these films. Many times parents are saying, hey, you know what, you can see this superhero movie even if it involves a lot of violence. They wouldn't be doing this if they didn't know that there was a market for it. So I think knowing that there is a market for it and that exists is a reality we have to face, and parents need to adjust to that reality and say, well, listen, if I don't want my kids to be exposed to this, then I can be involved. I cannot take them to the theater.
What do you think about that, Liz? It sounds like about the similar point to what you're saying, Liz. Are parents part of the problem here?
Parents are a big part of the problem, because my 9-year-old, I know for a fact, he only wants to see Batman: The Dark Knight. He can't see it. It's just not happening. And he'll say to me, Mom, all my friends have seen it. And I'll say, that's great. I'm glad that they've seen it. You're not seeing it. So again, it goes back to the parents' responsibility of us taking a step back and saying that movie is not appropriate. That video game is not appropriate. There are certain things that are not appropriate for our children to see or to be exposed to, and that's our responsibility.
This study was just focused on movies, and Jedediah, you brought it up that one of the issues for researchers is that kids can pull up the PG-13 movies online. But I don't know about you guys. I haven't been around any teenagers that's pulling up a movie for me. What they're pulling up is YouTube.
Yes,
and the dumb stunts that people do that are dangerous.
Yes.
Sometimes with weapons, sometimes with not, sometimes on skateboards, whatever they're doing. I mean, how do you control that? That's something that the kids can do so easily. It doesn't have to do with movies.
And look no further than video games.
Yes.
I mean, a lot of kids spend their times looking at video games. It's a cultural issue. We could talk just about movies, and that's fine. But unless you really address the cultural issue, that violence is more accepted now. It is more accepted among young people. Parents are starting to say, well, this is what's culturally acceptable. This is what's societally acceptable. And instead of battling against that,
you mean acceptable to watch, not necessarily acceptable to do.
Right, acceptable to watch. It's being understood, well, this is what kids watch these days. This is what kids do these days. I think parents should combat that and say, well, you know what? Not my kid.
I agree.
Not my student.
Not in my house.
What do you do with that? The television's on, the movie, the YouTube.
No, I'll tell you what you do. You have to watch and monitor your children. I know that parents today are so busy and everyone's so involved with everything else, but we as a parent need to know what our children are doing. My son, when he wants to go on YouTube, I say to him, what are you watching? Let me see what you're watching. Let me see what you're doing. I need to know what these children are. I mean, my 6-year-old, he was looking up stuff, I remember, about SpongeBob the other day that was not appropriate. And I said, you cannot be doing this, or I'm going to block this.
Where do you think, though, the line is drawn, Jedediah, or where should it be? Where, if it is a community issue, if it is parents and also the friends of parents that are raising children, and we do have different organizations that are putting ratings on, you know, the video games and the movies, where is the role of government or some sort of oversight? And maybe government's not the right agency to come in and say there is a certain amount of censorship. We don't have certain things in movie theaters that are not deemed appropriate. So
I don't think this is an issue that government's going to fix. No. I think this is an issue that parents are going to fix. And you know what? Even good parents, you can't monitor your kids all the time. But what you can do is talk to them about it.
But should we take out the ratings then? Should PG-13, all of that now? Does that just not even matter?
I think you can keep the ratings in and have an understanding that the ratings are sort of being modeled to society, and they're going to change. And it's not enough for you to look at a rating and say, well, this is rated R, or this is rated PG-13, so that's going to dictate my parenting. No, you have to research the films. You have to do a lot more research as a parent. So there is a certain degree of regulation that exists, but we all know in society, no matter what we look at, you can over-regulate all you want, but if you don't have good parenting and you don't have good advice and good conversations happening in the home, in that nuclear family, then you're going to have trouble no matter what.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure, guys. I mean, really. This Well, it sounds like you guys have a good hold on things. And tell us, Liz, I would like a list of when, maybe we can look in your blog for this, of what you are allowing your 9-year-old. He can't see Batman. I'm sure he's still having a lot of fun.
Not yet, not happening.
Watch out for the new Thor movie. That's the one coming out.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's what I heard.
You know,
I know.
He's got a hammer. It's
but
powerful.
You know what? Frozen was great. Disney's Frozen. It was wonderful. I recommend it for the holidays.
It's good to know. Just a couple good, nice to have the alternatives that are out there. Liz, Jedediah, great to see you both. Thank you very much.